Hey everyone, Anthony here. Just a little update before we get into the episode. This episode was actually recorded a few weeks ago and has been up on the audio-only platforms. And due to circumstances, we have not been able to make the video or record recently a new episode. However, we will be getting to it in the future. Just can't say exactly when. And I also wanted to let you guys know that I am back online doing tarot and pendulum readings on Facebook at Passion Tarot. Come find me there and enjoy this episode on air.
Good evening and welcome to All Things Esoteric Podcast, number 17 on the air element. My name is Kathleen and I am here with Anthony. Good evening, Anthony.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Well, that's good.
Do this.
That's good to hear. Yeah, let's do this. It's been a while, a coon's age, as they would say, but
Is that what they say?
yeah, I think we talked about that before, a coon's age.
No, I would have remembered a coon's age.
I'm telling you, it's on one of the podcasts. It is. But a while. It's been a while, and I just got to tell you, man. This COVID variant of the new Midwest variant. I was at a wedding, an amazing time. My niece got married, went back home. I have been sick on and off with this COVID thing. How have you been with it?
I got sick like 2 days here, 2 days there, and I was fine.
And that was it, and you haven't got sick again?
Yeah.
Okay. I've always been healthy, but I got it in 2020, and then I was well for 3 months, and then I got it again, but it was in a different part of my body. First time it was all in my head. Second time it was in my throat. The third time I got it, which was about 4 months later, I only had it for a couple days, and it was gone. And then the fourth time, which is the most recent time, this winter, before I got this Wisconsin Midwest one, I was like sick for 4 or 5 months. Well, Raj sounded like he was dying, and he wouldn't let me take him to the hospital. He's like, "I'll be all right.
Was
I'll
he
get
wrong,
through it."
though?
And he did.
Die.
And he did get through it, and then he gave it to me, and I'm like, dude. So this is my third day. I feel better, and I'm on the mend. So we'll just believe that with summer coming, it's really going to be gone. But we are on air. So yeah, let's open this podcast up, and I wanted to share some stuff that's happening in the night sky in April that's really important to remember, because April is an unprecedented month with many, many things going on. So I'm going to get through this as quickly as possible, then we'll jump into air. But April is bookended by 2 new moons. This is a rare doubleheader, and in a single calendar month, it's really, really very rare. The April 1st, we had a new moon in Aries, and on April 30th, we will have a new moon as well in Taurus. In the middle of all that, on April 16th, we will have a full moon in Libra. So anybody who's been following astrology, just saying those 3 dates and the signs, kind of see what's happening here. We've got a North Node in Taurus. It's very important as it ties in directly with what's happening in our country right now. Secondly, we've had that square. It's not squaring tonight, but we've had that square with Uranus, and it's that push-pull. We've had some tension there as well. So I think it's really important to see that Aries is pushing us out. In April, we had the spring equinox, and that's initiation energy. Aries is the first house. It's the ascendant. It's what people first see about you. It's cardinal, fire, Mars. And it's opposite the 7th house of Libra. So with a new moon in Aries and then a full moon in Libra, you can see we're going from one side of the chart to the other. And with the Taurus new moon April 30th, it's like saying, I really need you to ground your relationships. And so if you have Libra, which is we'll be talking about tonight, which is cardinal air, and Aries, which is cardinal fire, these are very significant energies of initiation and working with others. There's a polarity there that's been happening as we've been looking at this North Node and other transits on Libra's been highly involved with Venus. And Venus has done a lot of movement over the past months, stirring our relationships up. But with April, we always have this newness in the air. And that is the same thing with Aries. They're beginners. They're starters. They're initiators. Think of, the crocus pushing through the earth, and the butterflies and bees returning, and leaves once again clothing our trees. And spring is a powerful season. So it's great for beginning projects and initiating things. So this energy is in the air for us to tap into. And with the new moon occurring here at 11 degrees on April 1st, we've got that 111 number. So 1 is a seed. We know this. The Ace of Swords we'll be talking about is a seed. The Lord of the root of the powers of the air. It's a powerful, powerful card. All right, so with the new moon, you've got this playful, fun energy. And maybe some of you are sitting there going, well, it doesn't feel that way. Well, take a look at where this new moon occurred in your chart, and it would be at 11 degrees Aries. And that's where the emphasis will be for you, as well as the outer transit chart that's out there. So April's a pivotal change point when we look at the seasons and we look at where we're at. And most of the planets in April are in Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And all of the 4 elements are equally represented. So Aries would say, look, I know there's a lot going on, and I know that there's some very challenging energies out there, but there's newness every day if you choose it. There's power every day if you would but turn towards it. And if our lives are in a place where we're feeling that we're not in power or in control, or we don't feel powerful, maybe that's a time to step back and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing if it doesn't fulfill me? Why would I do that? The other side of that is everybody's got to make a living. You can't just quit your job. You have bills to pay and you have to eat. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get where you got to go. And Aries would say, that's right, and don't quit. Keep going, keep trying, keep moving forward, because every step that you take to do what's best for you to take care of yourself is going to be another step closer to your goal. If you're working the way that we talk about how we work with the elements, in our own magic, I guess you would say, then I feel like my life isn't random, that I'm designing my life, that I am in the driver's seat working with my guides, and that power of this newness that I'm talking about is available every day. And sometimes our bodies say no on this planet. They're heavy. Our spirit's inside of this heavy body on this earth, and it can get sick and it can get wore down, and it can say no. I also wanted to talk about the North Nodes for a minute here. And tonight they're sitting 22 degrees, North Node in Taurus, in the 8th house at this time. I've got 7 o'clock, so I'm about an hour after. I have the chart an hour after our time now, but it's pretty close. It's about right there. And the South Node is in the 2nd house. So the 2nd house is Taurus's house. And Scorpio's there, opposite Taurus in the North Node. So we have this energy, and we've had this before, we've talked about it, where they're flip-flopped. Taurus should be in the 2nd house, and Scorpio should be home in the 8th house. So with Taurus in Scorpio's house, earth energy, fixed earth energy and fixed earth water, it's a second sign to me of relationships here and talking about our relationships with others, because Venus is involved with Taurus, and our relationships with our resources, where we're living, where we spend our money, what we do with our money, how we feel about our money. Money is changing. The word on the street is there's going to be a reset. I kind of follow some of the financial stuff because of my background, but a lot is going on with especially the world's reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, which is in danger, as I speak, of no longer being just that, and we could see a restructuring of our currency. This would be money, 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 second house. And Scorpio's there in the South Node. And Scorpio's about what? Death. Fixed water going deep, right? Looking in and transformation. Death, yes. Death of what was. And transforming and saying, look, there's an overhaul going on here. Also, there was a position called a square, or an aspect called a square, that the nodes have been in. And they can create the square that they have with Saturn, can create a lot of tension. And it's very likely here as well with the moon in the North Node that you're going to establish some unions with people of a wide age difference than yourself. Older people, Saturn, can begin to play a more prominent role in your life. You can also become attracted to these people for their knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Saturn. Because wherever Saturn is, we know that he takes his time. He's been in Aquarius. He's at 22 degrees Aquarius tonight. We're going to see this too as Saturn moves out of Aquarius and is going to move into Pisces. And that's going to be very, very powerful. Tonight, this Saturn tension between the North Node that I want to get back to is there because we have Saturn and Mars conjunct. And that's another event that's very important to look at, with, especially with the squaring of the North Node. Mars already can be very, very, very active, passionate, moving energy. And with Saturn there, Saturn's pulling it back. He's pulling it back there, and he's also pulling it back with the North Node because he's squaring. And squares are tension areas. So it's a double tension in the sky. And we want to see the optimism of this Aries come in, but it's really been challenging with the squares that we've been experiencing and with the Saturn-Mars conjunction. So relationships. Venus is in the house as well in Pisces. Not as tight of a conjunction. She just moved in there in Pisces. But enough tension to say, hey, relationships. Aries and Libra, the moons that we're going to be experiencing this month, it's going back to relationships. So I think that there's been a lot of overhaul in relationships, especially since COVID, but with these aspects that we're having. On April 12th, barrier-breaking Jupiter, the largest planet out there in the sky, ruling Sagittarius and Pisces, syncs up with boundless ethereal Neptune, an event that happens only every 13 years. However, this is the first time since March 17th, 1856, that Neptune and Jupiter are both in Pisces. So this is a very supernatural synchronization going on here. The most spiritual, idealistic sign is Pisces. And Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and ruled by Neptune. So it's a co-rulership. And I wanted to read something out of the Mountain Astrologer really quick about this event, because I thought that she did a really good job on this. This is by Ray Sapp and Valentine. In Ocean of Potential, the 2022 Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, the Mountain Astrologer. I do not own this information. The two rulers of Pisces takes us on the expansive journey beyond the confines of time and space to the realms where laws of gravity lose their weight. They are open seas, and they require a spirit of adventure, braving unknown destinations to places where the impossible can become possible. The 13-year Jupiter-Neptune cycle represents our search for meaning, for the all-encompassing truth, prompting many of us to take risks and step outside the safety of our sandbox in search for greater meanings in our lives. So you can see how the Aries spring equinox, the Aries first new moon, 1-1-1 at 11 degrees, it's like this bursting of energy out that is also bringing in Jupiter and Neptune. Now, Neptune is an outer planet, and Jupiter is considered a bridge planet. It's not an inner planet. So when we have these outer, so to speak, planets that are having long transits together, it's very important to look at. And this is where you see whole generations, like the kids that are born under this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction are going to be some of the most spiritual kids that we've had, like high-minded, thinking above or for better or for all of humanity than we've seen in a really long time. We've been in Pluto Capricorn, and we're going to Pluto Aquarius. So we will have Pluto in Aquarius, we will have Pisces in Neptune, and Jupiter in Pisces as well. So we're going to have a very high-reaching, bringing information from above down. It's going to be phenomenal. Watch in 20 years what our world looks like on a spiritual-minded level. It's going to transform us. All right, so we were talking about Neptune and conjunct. I know I need to get going here. We're talking about Neptune conjunct cycle. So that cycle will last 13 years. It's huge, and it's going to give an opportunity for what has not been clear and foggy, Neptune. It's going to be brought into a bigger, larger manifestation. And I see that almost as Jupiter bringing things up close and allowing us to see, because wherever Jupiter is, it's very, very benevolent. It's a very positive planet. And she goes on, the boundlessness ushered in by two brotherly gods is inviting discovery, a celebration of spirit, and an aspiration to find solace in a world entrenched in trauma. So, yet such vast expanse can blur our references and engender a loss of direction. So you have to be careful too. It can go the other way, depending which way you're looking at it. Jupiter can, if you have a lot of fog in your life and not a lot of clarity, maybe a Neptune transit that's been really challenging, then Jupiter is going to enhance that, wherever Jupiter is. But it's also going to bring it closer, so that perhaps it will force you to kind of look at some things that you haven't looked at before. Some important guidelines. Distinguish wishful thinking from truth. Inflation leads to subsequent crash. Avoid the seduction of quick fixes. Things can get massive if you don't try too hard to control your success. It is raw, temptress, possibly a most impressive symphony of silence. Moving poetry is often found in the simplicity of a few words. Boundaries blur and expand simultaneously like a fog sprawling onto the land from the sea, as both the traditional and modern rulers of Pisces conjoin. This isn't as foreboding as it may sound. The hazy combination of these two can be a very good time to revise your vision board, if you have one. Engage in activities that require you to be imaginative. So there's also going to be, and then I'll move on here, a real explosion of artistry. Neptune. Neptune is magnetism, and if you want to go back and listen to our Neptune podcast, where we went into Neptune very deeply. I think we had a challenging time with Neptune, because Neptune can be hard to pin down. But this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction occurs at 23 degrees Pisces. So I just wanted to mention those things. And then the full moon that will be occurring April 16th in Libra, very important. This is going to allow us to really walk away from any connections with others that perhaps were too dramatic, were too explosive, we're not working, and there's been a trine over these past 6, 7, 8, 9 months. It's been all in the cards and in the sky of relationships changing and balancing. But with the Libra moon, we're especially aware of our need for relationships, because this is the 7th house of others, and all that comes with maintaining them. There is also a call here for the relationships that you do have: compromising, negotiating, graciousness, balancing. And the Aries sun, can be very assertive. And so there's a balance with Libra saying, look, I need a balance here. It can't all be one way. And the full moon also urges us to strike a balance in our personal needs. Things that perhaps we need to walk away from that aren't the best for us. So go in and take a look at this full moon occurring on April 16th. And then I don't know if we'll have another podcast before the end of the month. I've got some things coming up, but definitely have a look at these moons, because we have 3 active moon activity up there this month that I think is definitely worth taking a look at. So with that, I do want to share something I found on air, and then we're going to go ahead and get started into the Fool. Is that correct? We're going to go right into the first card, which is the Fool. Remember last week when we did water, and we talked about the podcast before, when we were like, what order should we go in? And we just automatically started with fire, and then I'm like, what's next? And you said water, and I was like, no, earth comes next. And you're like, no. Yep. And then we had that debate. Okay. Well, you're not going to believe this, but I came across one of the reasons why that is. I thought that was really neat, and I just wanted to share it really quick. But it pertains to that conversation, and I was researching for this podcast and came across a video by Deborah Silverman, and she is an excellent teacher, psychotherapist, and an astrologer. So she's out on YouTube. Check out her videos, especially her one on the element. She's excellent with the way that she breaks things down. But I'm going to paraphrase her words here. She shared a story which I thought was pretty cool on this. So when she explained traditional astrology, she used the imagery of going to a party, okay? So traditional Western astrology, or not Eastern or Vedic. So in the West, or Western, it's fire, earth, air, water. That's the way that we explain the 4 elements, and it comes through in astrology. But in Vedic, it isn't that way. It's water, air, earth, and then fire. And she explained it this way. Pretend you're going to a dinner party, and you're going to hang out with some people, and so that would be fire energy. You're initiated to go. You go out in your fire, and you're active, and you're outward in your expression, and then you turn to someone, and you meet them, and you're like, hey, your place or mine. That's earth. And then air asks, which is the next sign, hey, what's your name? After they've already had earth, and then water shows up and is kind of feeling, I don't know if I really like this encounter. Whereas Eastern or Vedic circles have the arrangement water, air, earth, fire. So the dinner party would go, water would go first and say, look, should I go to this party? Is this intuitively a good thing for me to do? Is this right for me? There's a knowing and a sensing with water. So when we meet someone or talk to them at a dinner party, we're guided by our intuition. We're intuitively led. We're not just randomly meeting people, but we're relying on our own instincts and our own intuition to guide us to begin with. So water gives you that feeling and a sense of connection. and a knowing to initiate. So then air asks, well, tell me your name. Let's talk. And that's when you get to know each other through communication. And then earth says, hey, let's go out for dinner. And finally, if we find out that we click, fire takes place. Passion. So we're either on or we're off. I thought that was really interesting, the way that Eastern places water first, or the older circles, I guess, where you study what you found out, the esoteric knowledge. And another rationale to consider for water, she said, is that we start our day with water. We shower, we have our tea, we go to meditation and calm, we begin our day, and we set the tone. And in the Orient and in esoteric religions, you'll see water as a symbol of extreme importance, and how the waters inside have to be centered before you can even start your day. So water is the element of psychic phenomenon, and people who have strong waters have deep imaginations. So I thought that was interesting, and I think we're both right depending on which tradition of astrology we're using. Yeah. Wasn't that cool, though? Great story, right? It's not my story, so I can say that. Yay to Deborah Silverman. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to you, and we're going into the Fool card, the air card.
Right. So, the Fool card. Here's what I have from Lon Milo Duquette's book, of course, as we've been going, Understanding Crowley's Thought Tarot. Why is the Fool such a mysterious and awesome character? Isn't he just another medieval cast member jesting to the Emperor, Empress, and Hierophant? Perhaps. That picture certainly fits many of the traditional images of this card. From a mystical point of view, however, the Fool is much more, and actually much, much less. The Fool propounds the ultimate riddle. Creation and the meaning of life are an incomprehensible joke. The Fool is more than God. The Fool is the nothing we refer to when we say nothing created God, nothing is beyond God, nothing is greater than God. The Fool is perfectly empty-headed, for if there were anything inside, his innocence would be destroyed. As the first trump, it is only logical that the Fool be considered key number 1. He is not, however, key number 1. He is key number 0. This is the Fool's first and greatest trick, creating the one, and consequently everything else, out of nothing. That's crazy, your rational mind says, and your rational mind is correct, up to a point. It doesn't make sense that something can come out of nothing. If we wanted to personify the irrational concept of something coming from nothing, however, what a better mascot could we choose than that of an idiot who makes no sense, a fool? If we wanted to personify the irrational concept of something coming from nothing, however, what better mascot could we choose than that of an idiot who makes no sense, a fool? I just wanted to remark on this, something coming from nothing. There's an old Hermetic riddle, the equation 0 equals 2. And this again, we have the something coming from nothing. Where the 0 equals 2 itself is a bit misleading, because the full statement is 0 equals 2 plus negative 2, because the universe is completely balanced. Nothing can exist without its opposite. For 2 to exist, negative 2 must also exist, and which gives a sum total of 0. So because the universe is so completely balanced, it ultimately amounts to nothing.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm fascinated that they put 0 in the deck. You know, if you look at how the deck is structured, 78 cards, 0 to 22, it's like, I love the way you explained it. It's before anything is. It represents all potential.
Right.
So why do you think they use
And what did you have on the Fool?
Yeah, why do you think they...
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, that's okay. Why do you think they use air for the Fool? Why that element?
It is contradictory, right? Because we normally think of the Fool as intellectual, not empty-headed. But there is something about the airhead. I think it more comes about the innocence normally related to the air element, right? When we think of Mercury, he's like the young boy type.
There it is.
And so it's more of the innocence of it.
I think that's what I would say, and it's just like open to all things. And when we look at the first air sign of Gemini, the Lover's card, but a lot of cards in between there, right? But when you look at Gemini, he's mutable air, the twins are mutable air, and the third house is the first air house. And it's like wide open communication and this excitement and innocence and this open-mindedness. So I totally see Mercury tied into there as well, and he's moving. When you look at the card itself, I don't know which card. When you look at him, he's moving, he's active, he's literally ready to step off that cliff, and it requires you to be like a child. It requires you that if you want to go on the Fool's journey, which is what this is about, the Tarot, the 78 cards, tells a story, then you have to be willing to be the Fool. Like, you have to be willing to just trust and be willing to be open to adventure. And don't make all the decisions about where you're going to go in one step, at one time. Like, allow yourself to take the journey and to learn and to not get hung up on where you're going to end up. And I think that was really hard for me when I saw the Fool and I started digging into it, because I have a South Node Capricorn, so in the second house. So I came from a very hard-working type of life. I know I did. And so it's like, no, you got to work for it. If you don't work for it, you're not going to get anywhere. It has to be hard. It has to cost. It has to be painful. It's like this Capricornian Pluto, what we're living in. This society of everything's got to be hard or it isn't worth anything. And I'm moving away from that because it's really hard to live like that. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about with this Capricorn energy. I think we've talked about it. It's kind of the way that we used to do work is changing. It's changing. People are walking away in droves. And the establishment, the ones that are like, who's going to pay the taxes now, are freaking out. Because the ones that were paying those taxes, which are paying the pensions and paying the Social Security, your checks go directly to support those programs that you will never benefit from, more than likely. Because it's going to change. And everything that's been happening, and I'm getting on a tangent here, but everything that's been happening is a result of these movements in the sky. And they have ushered in a new age and a new way of being. And people are leaving their jobs, and they're changing, and it's going to change the way that we do business. I remember my dad, he would get up at 5 in the morning every day, put his boots on, and went and worked his butt off. And he just always promoted really hard work. And it's not that I don't want to work hard. It's that I got to the point where it's like, I want to do what I really love. And this, I only did this because I was caught in this matrix, this job I was in. Like, I had to make all this money. You know what I'm talking about because you have a 10th house Saturn, don't you? Saturn in your 10th house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. definitely.
I also wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning and put my boots on.
I didn't mean it in a negative way. I know you work really hard. I'm saying,
I didn't think you did.
If things were different, if our world was different and we were more doing what we love and we didn't, it's the system. I've gone on a tangent. I'll stop. I just think the system's broken. It's broken, and it needs a rehaul. And everything that's happening, I'm like, bring it on.
Burn it all down.
I am ready. I am ready to, and that's me too. What do I need to change? You know, I'm wide open. I'm the fool, man. I admit it. Every day, I'm on a journey. All right, I want to talk about this card a minute, though. I love the way that it's done in the Smith-Waite deck. The golden colors are phenomenal. And whenever you see this yellow golden color, you know that it is involving the sun, and that would involve gold and wealth. There's reason, happiness, optimism, and pleasure when we have this beautiful gold color. So if you get this card in a reading, Spirit guides whatever you believe in, however you do that. Your intuition, your subconscious, directing you to be willing to take a leap. And how fitting is that with Aries energy, right? It's a great time to make a change. Do what you love and love what you do, and you'll never work another day in your life. So the element air is mental intention, and it connects us to the universal life force. So air is very impersonal energy. You know, the air signs. And there's a detachment from emotions. So he's not really connected to anything on this card. He's just ready to go. I think what's also important to notice on this card is the imagery of the doggy. And dogs represent the material world and civilization. So he's not going on a journey up above, away. It's not just a spiritual journey. He is on the earth, inviting us to feel at home in our bodies and know that we're on a journey here and know that all the world is a stage and we're just playing our part. So the dogs are bringing you back down to earth, so to speak, in this card. And they're companions and protectors. And you can see them in that card if you're looking at the Fool. He's warning this fool to not be foolish and go off that cliff. And so he's keeping him. This is why you should always have a dog. I have two, and they're amazing. He's keeping him grounded. And my dogs, I have said to them, you've kept me alive sometimes, because I have to feed them and take care of them. And I have been in places where I've been shattered and broken, where I haven't wanted to. I've had dark days. I've had hard times. And those dogs, man, literally one time, and I'm just going to share this, I was out in the woods. I was in a very, very dark, bad place as far as I couldn't see an opening. And it was a while ago, quite a while ago. And I've only done this once. But I grabbed my gun, and I have a judge. There's no safety on that thing. It's a big gun. And I grabbed my dog, and we went out into the woods. And I went out there with the intention of not coming back. And I was sitting out there, and I was way out, man. I was way out. And Lucy was about 9 months old. And I thought about it. I had the gun in my hand, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? How's she going to get home? That's what I heard. How's Lucy going to get home? My pup. I'm like, oh, man, does she know me? Would she get home? I mean, she was young. So that one thing kept me alive. So
wow.
It's a true story. I'm so thankful, because I don't know what that was. It was a very bad place. I just didn't see hope. There was no hope. which is really ridiculous because my life, it's just ridiculous now that I look at it. But I bet if I went back and I could remember when that time was, I just have to go back to when she was young, I guess. There was a transit there probably. No, and I didn't have the intuitive journey of the Fool where I've, moved through the tarot, and I'm learning and I'm growing. As you study the cards, it's personality development, wouldn't you say, Anthony?
Oh, definitely.
How has it helped you, the tarot?
Well, I'll answer that question, but something just clicked for me, and I don't want to lose this thought because it's important on the topic. Further connecting, the innocence of the Fool to air, I just remembered, I'm pretty sure I read it in Crowley's Book of Thoth, one of the few understandable passages if you're not genius. He was explaining that in mythology, there's this archetype of story where gods and goddesses will pretend to be common people, acting like a stranger in need, asking like regular people for help, like to test them. And like this happens in the Bible, and the angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah, and they all failed that test clearly. Anyhow, the idea is this type of story also falls into the Fool, because the Fool, it's not actual stupidity. He only seems stupid to everyone else, right? Because when you know something other people don't know, and not even if you know something, when you just feel something to be true that you just have to go with, it's a masked, it's not idiocy, it's just a masked intelligence that causes others to think you're foolish. Right, because the Fool on the Tree of Life, he connects right to Kether. He goes straight to the top.
That's beautiful.
How it's helped me learning tarot and the archetypes is, what first caused me to want to learn it is a quote. I'm pretty sure it was a Crowley quote. Again, it was about just how learning these archetypes is like an upgrade to your brain almost. And at first, just that idea kind of, I didn't know exactly what he meant, but I was like, that's an interesting enough idea where it kind of makes sense, but I can't exactly put my finger on why in like a foolish type of way. It was a non-rational. Anyway, and I kind of do recognize these archetypes in people, or not even in people, sometimes just in individual actions, and it does kind of help me understand why things are and exactly how to react to them.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me. It's very meditative, and it's full of symbology, and if anybody's like, well, that's really stupid, they're just pieces of paper and, colors on a card. They are, but let me say this to you. Close your eyes and let me know what you see when I say this. Nike, Coca-Cola, BMW.
Drugs, cars.
I'm just saying, you see the symbol right away. The Nike swish.
No, I saw white powder.
Starbucks, you see the mermaid on the side of the cup. I mean, these are symbols that invoke a response, and they have meaning. They have meaning, or you wouldn't be wearing Nike shoes right now, some of you. So they have...
It doesn't have meaning. People are brainwashed into thinking it has meaning.
Oh, okay, that would be true. Yes. I was speaking facetiously. You know what I mean. But, you know what I mean. They have meaning. Let's get back to dogs really quick, too. They protect the soul in the spirit world. That's right. A lot of reading about dogs around, and they protect you. So
I found that
I'm going to have a lot of animals protecting me in the spirit world that have passed on. I've had a lot of animals that I've nurtured through the years. Some gone, some still with me, but I'd like to think that's true.
I found a sigil of Cerberus in a grimoire, and he's very useful for what you think he would be for protection and guarding certain spots.
Interesting. I'd like to dig deeper into Hecate and her dogs at some point. But, the white rose here, this is very important to look at. Roses are different colors within the tarot, and depending on the color of the rose, it means something differently. But white roses represent spiritual purity. So naivety, again, like a child, head up high and open to transformation. So the 5-pointed white rose is a symbol of the union of the 4 elements plus the 5th element of spirit, just like the pentagram, or the pentacle, so to speak. You've got 5 points, and the 5th one would be spirit. So that just shows me that we do need air, we do need earth, we do need fire, we do need water, but is that enough? Isn't there another element that must be brought in? And say, yes, absolutely. That which is outside of us. Some call it God. Some call it Holy Spirit. Some call it Jesus. What do you call it?
Words are so
inept.
Yeah, I just usually call it spirit or the universe.
The universe, yeah. The chakra represented by the Fool is the root. So this is important to mention. It's the first chakra, and it's often symbolized by the color red, so you do see red in this card. And it's our base, and it's what connects us to Earth. So even though he's going out on this journey, this is what tells me he isn't going out because he doesn't have anything better to do. Like he's just bored. He has a rooting to him. It represents the first chakra, and he may be moving, but he's grounded in the fact that he knows that he's on a path and that he needs to go forward. And if you're not rooted, and if your root chakra is not grounded, it can really make you feel your equilibrium's way off. But he looks like he's striding rather confidently in this card. So the chakra of grounding, survival, and manifestation. So make sure that before, I think it's wisdom of, and studying the root chakra, before you go anywhere in the morning, right, the water, all of that, before you go anywhere, make sure you're grounded. Yes, set out, but if you're not meaning if you're going to just like run away from something, that's not the time to go out on this fool's journey. Because where he's going is air, and man, when we start getting into these astrological signs in air, there's a very intelligent knowledge here. And Uranus is tied to the Fool. If you pick up the Fool card and you go to Google Fool card, I've never done this, but I just pulled it up, and Uranus is tied to him. Because I think they're tying it to being Aquarian-like. You know what I mean? Aquarius is fixed air, and even though it's not the Aquarius card, the star is the Aquarius card in the tarot, it's still pulling Uranus in there because he's wide open like...
Wait, Uranus is the sky god, remember? Air?
Yes, and also, thank you, excellent. And also, he's the rebel and the revolter, the Aquarius person is willing, wherever your Aquarius is,
it spins on its side, the planet.
Exactly. Yep, that was a really good episode. I enjoyed doing Uranus. We should go back and listen to that, guys. All right, so, yeah. You got anything else on the Fool card?
No. Gemini?
Okay. All righty, so the air signs, again, are Gemini, mutable air, 3rd house. Libra, cardinal air, 7th house, and Aquarius, fixed air, the 11th house. So you have all 3 qualities within air. And Gemini is represented by the twins. And according to Greek mythology, the twins were said to have different fathers. Castor was the mortal son of the king of Sparta, and Pollux was the divine son of Zeus. They are said to have been born from the same egg. When the mortal Castor was killed, Pollux, being a demigod, asked Zeus to let him share his immortality with his twin to keep them together. They were then transformed into the constellation Gemini. Geminis are thus said to have a dual personality, and their strength lies in their versatility. So Gemini's ruling planet is Mercury. Mercury is curious, intellectual knowledge, social, energetic. The merchant, again, think the merchant. Mercury's moving, communicating, wanting to get people together, changing perspectives, opening other people's perspectives, getting perspectives together, but can also, depending on how your Mercury is, the ruling planet of Gemini, it can be very indecisive at times. The twins going back and forth. If you've met a Gemini, I know I have a very good friend who's a Gemini, and she fits this archetype very, very closely. They can be on edge, unreliable, and unfocused. And when you look at some of the stressor cards, the swords in the tarot, we see some tough cards with air, don't we?
Oh, of course. Most of them are.
This is where this comes in. So they're said to have a dual personality, and again, this strength is going to be in their versatility. They're able to see different points of view. And Gemini within the human body represents the arms, the lungs, shoulders, hands, nervous system, and the brain. So that's where you get this nervous tension that sometimes Geminis have. Remember, their planet is Mercury, and they rule the third house. This is the first house of air, so it's got energy here. And it's a house of communication. Communication, transportation, local short traveling to friends, neighbors, your community, whereas the ninth house is long distance travel. This is where the teachers of the zodiac. Planets in the third house, chances are you like to teach, depending on the planet, or you want to teach, or you have taught, or you will teach at some point. Natal planets are also motivated by expression here and often help us guide to build close relationships. I think you have a whole stellium in the third house, don't you?
Yeah.
Hecate, Venus, Mercury's way on the other end in Virgo. You have some other stuff in between this. So you have a focus on this. Third house plays big into this lifetime for you. So that is the third house. And do you have anything on astrology there, or do you want to get right into?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go right ahead, and then we'll get into the card. I did want to say quick. Geminis are very independent people, very, very enterprising, adaptable, curious, but they can be fickle, superficial. Again, their planet is Mercury, so many Geminis are teachers. Many Geminis are communicators. And we need them, but they are the twins, so careful with those Geminis. You never know which twin you're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. That was wonderful. So, from Your Place in the Sun, officially authored by Evangeline Adams. An ascended Gemini typifies the mind of man, considered as a mechanism. It is capable of doing any kind of work, and of itself does not care in the least what that kind of work is, for the mind of man is entirely unmoral. The same ingenuity of invention may be used to combat a disease or to plot a murder. This being so, the activity of Gemini needs the right kind of direction, for unless the mind is kept busy with useful and uplifting work, it will occupy itself with the useful and deleterious. Moral education is therefore all important to people with this sign rising. The mind is not wicked in itself, but under temptation it makes all the difference whether there is any principle in the man to prevent his mind from working in improper ways. The unmodified native of Gemini has little or no inborn sense of discrimination. The childishness of Gemini is very characteristic of the nature of his mind, and this is further indicated by the dual nature of this sign. We have to deal not merely with one child, but with twins. This readiness of the Gemini native to work on any material without much consideration of whether it is inherently good or bad is practically always found in these people. It is not only a moral question. Such matters as aesthetics are equally to be included. Whatever be the subject presented to it, the mind works logically and accurately on that subject, produces the conclusion, and presents it with the perfect confidence that it has done a very fine piece of work. The logical mind being an extremely rare object, other minds are very apt to be shocked by the coldness and rigidity and formality of its productions. People born under warmer signs instinctively resent the method of presentation, even where they agree with the conclusion. They feel the absence of heart and account it devilish. St. Paul's method of argument is very typical of Gemini. There are very many earnest Christians who resent St. Paul's teaching as incompatible with those of Jesus, but this is really more because of his style than because of his conclusions. The real difference is that Christ invariably appealed to the emotions, St. Paul only to the intellect.
Oh, that's interesting, having really read the Bible like 3,000 times from my background.
Yeah, I thought you know more on that. I don't really know much about St. Paul.
Yeah, well, he definitely, no doubt about that, came because he was a teacher, and Christ was a guru who was trained in India on the Silk Road. After he went to the Himalayas and met
I don't
with the
believe
monks.
it was the actual person. It's more just
there's
a myth.
records of him in scrolls. Over
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, it is. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's all I had on the astrology of Gemini.
Okay. I do want to just let me close with this, and we'll get to the card in the tarot. The likes of a Gemini, coming from the Watkins Astrology Handbook by Lynn Burbeck, the practical system of do-it-yourself astrology. Likes: reading and talking, being on the move, more than one interest, the quirky and the unusual, novelty and variety. One of my best friends, like I said, is a Gemini, and she's amazing like this. I absolutely love being around her, but if you want to have a super serious, in-depth conversation, not that they can't do this, but don't pick a Gemini, okay? It's just not going to happen. Dislikes: mental stagnation, being tied down, lack of interest in education, ruts that turn into graves, and yesterday's papers. I like the way that he did this. I'm going to read them for all the signs. Or she. I don't know if Lynn is a male or female. Didn't even look at that. But anyway, we're going to go to the card. You want to hop on that? The Lover's card?
Yes. Did you want me to start?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so the Lovers, connecting Binah to Tiphereth. La Maiote Kerrigan. Here we go. Atu 6. The Lovers is a fourth of the alchemical trumps. A familiar alchemical maxim reads, solve et coagula, solution and coagulation. This process of solve is represented in tarot by the Lovers. The process of coagula is the art card. This makes sense astrologically because in the zodiac, Gemini, the Lovers, is opposite Sagittarius, art. Between these two trumps are other trumps that represent developmental phases between solve et coagula. Solve et coagula is a story of marriage and pregnancy. The main character in this alchemical love story is not the bride nor the groom, but the child of their union. In the Thoth Tarot, the child is symbolized as the Orphic egg that, as Crowley reminds us, represents the essence of all life that comes under the formula of male and female. Like the events surrounding the birth of any child, our alchemical scenario develops in stages. Atu 6, the Lovers, is the wedding ceremony. Atu 14, art, is the honeymoon. Atu 9, the hermit fertilizes the egg. And Atu 13, death, keeps it nice and warm in the last stage before hatching. Starting at the bottom of the card, we find the Orphic egg. It has wings as if it just flew in from the Magic's card. In the beginning phase of this operation, it is just a latent seed of life. It sits between a white eagle and a red lion, symbolic of the female and male components of our formula. The white and red tinctures of the Empress and Emperor. Later, in the art card, we will see the advanced stage of the operation. The red lion will turn white and the white eagle will turn red. The children attending the bride and groom are none other than Cain and Abel. Their presence, together with Lilith and Eve in the upper corners, springs from Crowley's vision of the second aether of the vision and the voice. The bride is white and wears a silver crown. She holds a golden cup that bears the image of the descending dove of the Holy Spirit. Her robe is ornamented with beads like the ones we saw on the blouse of the Empress and the Emperor. The groom is black and wears a golden crown. He holds the sacred lance, the complementary weapon to the bride's cup. His robe is ornamented with snakes like those found on the blouse of the Emperor. The officiating priest is none other than the hermit of Atu 9. He makes the magical sign of the enterer by thrusting his hands forward over the couple. Around his arms, a scroll of the word, the cosmic marriage certificate, is twisted to form the eternal Mobius strip. The entire ceremony takes place beneath an arch of steel swords. Zain, the Hebrew letter attributed to the lovers, means sword. We will see how all this symbolism reverses and blends when we discuss Atu 14 art. But first, we have other things to discuss, including those that represent the alchemical phases between Solf et Coagula. I probably should have skipped that last part. But yes, the lovers, and the general divinatory meaning in general use in a reading of this card is that this card signals openness to inspiration, intuition, intelligence, second sight, childishness, frivolity, thoughtfulness, divorce from practical consideration, indecision, self-contradiction, the highbrow.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Good stuff. It's heady.
Oh, yeah.
I think
very heavy.
Yeah, that's a very, very heady. That's the Thoth deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You like
so Smith-Waite, Mornaga. I got you. I've seen some of it. I'm going with the traditional. And in the traditional Smith-Waite 6 Gemini, you've got 2 naked people and a golden sun behind an angel that's coming down with the hands open. And the angel of the tarot represents messages from the divine. So anytime there's angels, and you'll see them throughout the deck, they're different angels. And I have that in another book that actually there's the way that they do them, they come out in an order, and there's something to that. But whenever you see an angel, they're messages to be received from either another person or from our own subconscious minds or in dreams or during meditation. But when you see this card and you see an angel come forth in a card, it's important to pay attention to it because there's a message coming from out there to you. And angels guide us, they take care of us. So this angel's coming forth with a message saying, hey, I want you to listen. I've got something for you. Now, the 2 people standing there. Now, what was standing on the Thoth deck? Was it 2 people?
It was Lilith and Eve.
Lilith and Eve. That's interesting. And I see why he did that, and there's so much to be said just about that.
Well, the idea is it's not just, his idea to put on the card. It was his vision scrying that certain number aether, which is when you scry the aethers, it's a thing in Enochian magic, but it's from a vision. He didn't it's from a vision that was induced from trying to go to a specific dimension that is basically this card in a way.
Wow.
So it wasn't just an artistic choice. So if you want to read about all his visions, it's in a book, The Vision and the Voice.
We should do a thing on him, a podcast on him, because he really gets a bad rap. I know that he did some things that were absolutely out of my realm of what I would do. But then I step back and I look at some of my choices that I've made that other people wouldn't too. So it's like, I think you need to just cease from all I think you need to discern, definitely.
And there's also a lot of propaganda, that's just obviously not true, like eating babies and shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, everything on the internet's true.
Yeah, it just shocks me. It just shocks me that he gets the worst reputation in the conspiracy community when the conspiracy community should understand that when you go against the powers that be, which is, in this case, Crowley, everything he said basically was against the church, they will do and say whatever they will do and say to, if they can't kill you, they will try to kill your character. I mean, conspiracy people are supposed to be well-versed in this, but when it comes to him, they're like, oh no, Satan, evil, bad man.
Well, he did do some crazy stuff. That has been verified. But I want to get back to the nudity on this card. Standing there, are completely naked, a man and a woman. And whenever you see nudity in the tarot, and you'll see it a couple other places, it's a symbol of being open and receptive and messages from the spirit realm. It can also represent sexuality depending on whatever you see on the table in front of you. If it's just one card, I will go with completely the Lovers. If you only draw one card, the Lovers message. But it is number 6, too. I want to talk about numerology, which is important. And 6 is the number of harmony and balance and love. Happiness, service, and social responsibility.
Tippereth, the sun.
Exactly. And 6s are past the 5s, and when you look at, pull all the 5s out in the tarot and set them out.
Deborah, destruction.
Yeah, you'll see when you get to 6, there's a breath of fresh air here. It's initial success. Initial, I thought that was fascinating as I was studying, because initial is the big word of April, initiating energy. 111. I mean, it couldn't be any more in our faces. So at 11 degrees, look where 11 degrees in Aries is in your chart, and that's the energy for you until the end of the month, or the new moon, coming. But 6 is also compassion and generosity. You're in a place where you're in a good place. You have so much that you're able to perhaps give and be generous. It's also the third eye chakra, so with the angel here, this is definitely a message from above wanting to come through. Now, there's a snake and there's flames. Whenever you see a snake, it's a symbol. It goes back to Adam and Eve. The snake represents evil there. In the creature that sheds its old skin, it represents regeneration and healing. It's also a phallic symbol representing sexuality and the masculine essence. And it also represents feminine power. So the snake has several meanings. It's not always just one meaning. You've got to look at, okay, what else is on the table, and what was
the evil one? I kind of just throw out the window, because I see that as coming from Christianity, and they're against the snake because the snake is wisdom and evolution, and that to the Christian God, he doesn't want that for his people. So I tend to throw the evil interpretation right out the fucking window.
Yeah, and we all know that story really well of how, it's highly, I don't know. There's just so much that could be said about that story, and just that one story alone, and what it's done to humanity. The snake represents character traits of sneakiness and cunning, but also cautiousness and wisdom. So we have duality here. And again, this is what's important. When you're reading, there's a story in front of you with the cards. So look at what else is around. What other elements are around? Are there major arcana cards, of which there are 22 major themes, 0 to 22? Or are they the lower cards, the aces through the tens? Is there people involved? Is there a king, a queen, a page, or a knight? So that's all important. The man has flames coming off his tail. And flames both create the sun's energizing power to give us life, but also to destroy. And the flame is a symbol of transformation and creativity. Think wands, the magic wand. Flames can also represent the burning away of anything impure, as in the phrase, trial by fire. This is from the Galaxy Tarot that I'm reading this. So I want to give them credit on that. So also the mountain, they are above the mountain. The mountain is below them. If you look at the card and see where they're standing, it comes up to right where their genitals are, if you look at the card.
So they're high up in the air.
Their whole upper bodies, their whole, well, they're on Earth, clearly, but their whole upper bodies are above, but their genital natures are on Earth. So it's representing, to me, with the flame and the snake and the woman and the man, it's representing sexuality in a deep way, and the lovers would be about loving each other. I mean, that is the theme of the card. It's a man and a woman getting together, so it's looking for, I think, because the devil is the other card that reduces to a 6. And the devil has 2 people, but they're in chains. When we get to 15, man, they're in chains, remember? Mm-hmm. So they're not in chains yet here. They're just starting out like the Fool, air energy, right? And they're on their way, and the angel's blessing them, and there they are. So if this card shows up, I always see it as a love union, or maybe some cooperation that's needed between the yin and the yang. And that I have a choice when I see this card. Like, I can choose to turn my back and just do my own thing. It's a powerful card, and I think when you see it, you should tune into your heart, because it represents the heart chakra. But just like Gemini, right, that the cards represented, also pay attention to your head. So it's this, again, this polarity, almost like, oh, I love her with my heart, but I know it's not right for me, right? Oh, I want to eat this candy bar at 10 o'clock at night while I veg out on Netflix, but I know that that's not good for me, to go to bed with a full stomach on shit. You see what I'm saying? It can be loving yourself. Doesn't necessarily mean loving another person. So that's all I got on the Lover's card.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, I wanted to share something really quick while we're on the tarot about wind, which is how, it's air energy, but it's how Pamela Eakins, PhD, Tarot of the Spirit book, page 161, she uses, I love the way she does the analogy of wind here. She uses wind instead of air. And
but that's like more typical in the East.
Exactly. So I wanted to read a little bit of this because I thought it was very profound and I thought it was beautiful. She says, life. With our first breath, we breathe in the consciousness of our present plane, the plane of manifestation. And that's what we see in Gemini, right? It's really not manifested yet. The Fool had to go to the Magician, and then the Empress, and, the High Priestess, and then the Empress, and then the Emperor, and then the Hierophant, right? And then Gemini appears. It's like, now you're ready to go out. That's how I see 6. So it's deeply, deeply has to do with communication in our hot breath air coming out of us. It's very active and very alive. Wind is energy. It is free to all. It is infinite. Where does it come from and where does it go? On a physical plane, wind is caused by a constant interchange of air between the cold polar caps and the warm tropics. When air cools, it becomes compressed, and when it warms up, it expands. Thus, on the analytic scientific level, wind is caused by a change of temperature. When the temperature changes, bodies of air begin to move. Wind is also a manifestation of Earth's rotation. The Earth moves 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. This causes the production of a sea of air. These two great forces in combination produce a pattern of winds which travel the Earth's surface. Even though from time immemorial, navigators have depended upon the power of wind, it was not until the middle of the 19th century that wind was studied seriously. Using thousands of ship logs, U.S. Navy hydrographer Matthew Fontaine Maury produced a map of the world's winds. This map shows 52 wind systems. Maury demonstrated that a longer sea route can sometimes result in faster travel, depending upon the prevailing winds. The key for Maury, as well as for us in working with the tarot, is using the power of the wind to one's advantage. In symbolic terms, wind is force brought into manifestation, just as earth represents manifested form. Thus, wind and earth are like brother and sister, bearing a strong resemblance to the parent elements, fire and water, which correspond to force and form on the level of idea. Harnessing the wind's power, or the power of the intellect, results from understanding its patterns. Bodies of air, for example, move from high to low pressure zones. How does the intellect work? There are 7 veils which mask the deepest internal pure thought. The veil of imprinting, the veil of parroting, the veil of social conditioning, the veil of the clever show, the veil of ego reification, the veil of spinning intellect, and the veil of massive confusion. And she goes into those. But the true intellect, pure thought, discoverable beyond these veils, is fresh and clear, unfettered by external stimuli. Pure thoughts can be discovered through attuning to the innermost conscience, the major personal guide in the suit of wind. In order to attune to the conscious, veils must be sliced away. Thus, the major tool of the suit of wind is the sword. The sword slashes material, both formulative and concrete, into smallest components. The sword pierces, makes holes, cuts apart, lifts and comes to a point. The sword is a weapon against falsehood. All of these attributes of the sword represent the analytical capability of humankind. When we are analytical and intellectual, we are really sharp. I can use my blade to kill or to prepare the ground for planting. I alone decide. The use of the sword is something over which we as warriors have total control. It is our weapon. It is our tool. We cannot, on the other hand, control the wind. We can only understand its patterns and endeavor to work with its energy. Through understanding the patterns of the wind, that is the blowing of our own intellect as well as that of our culture and historical time period, we can avoid entrapment in the veils which act like nets and hold us captive. But I think she really grabbed that very, very well. And when you see the swords, which we're going to get to after we go to Libra and Aquarius, boy.
Yes, and as we just mentioned, the Hebrew letter for attributed to the lovers is Zain, which means sword. And yes, it was a very good description of air in general and the symbology associated with it.
And the Hermetic Tarot I bought, which is a black and white deck, I highly recommend. The Ace of Swords is called the Lord of the Root of the Powers of Air.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful.
I wish that deck had color.
I know, it is really beautiful.
The
black
and white.
I know, but it really can grab you. It's very, sometimes in your face, like, oh my.
It's so dreary. It's like I'm trapped in a world without color. Who would want that?
I hear you. The element air also goes with the kings. We forgot to mention that. All kings are air. And their corresponding suits.
In Raider Waite, in Thoth, the kings are fire. I mean, actually, there are no kings, actually. The kings are replaced with knights.
Man, he just went ahead and did a whole bunch of spiritual lessons on his own and reinvented it.
He's got his explanations.
Man, that would mess my head.
You got to read his explanations for yourself. Okay. Like, the idea is, like, the knight came in and he fought a battle and he won his place as king, and that's a more active way to be king, which is more fire.
All right, give me the fire. I'll have to take a look at that. Once I really master the tarot, I'm going on my 6th year of studying the tarot, and I feel like I'm only tipping the surface. So within the Tarot, this is the mind, the breath of life, being expressed within the soul incarnation. And incidentally, the direction of air is east, and the symbol for air is an upward triangle with a line across the very top of the triangle. And Earth is pointing down. So air is masculine in outward energy, which is important to remember too. It is not yin energy, it's not feminine. Air is masculine. So it's fire.
Yes.
That might be why he gave fire to the kings. I can see that. That's probably where he got that from. All right, so Libra. We ready to go on to Libra?
Yes. Again, from your place in the sun. Libra, being the cardinal sign attributed to air, represents that element in its most active form. Air has no shape. It cannot be seen. It hardly resists the movement of material objects and is, therefore, difficult for some people to understand how this innocent-seeming substance can be a destructive force. But when air becomes aggressive, it is the most terrible and irresistible of all agents. The tornado and the hurricane, the cyclone and the typhoon tolerate resistance as little as a volcano. Air is the chief nourisher of the life of man, yet in one way or another, air kills more men every year than all the other elements combined. We must never, therefore, think of Libra as in any way passive. The passive type of air is given by Gemini, which is a thing unstable, easily swayed, opposing no resistance. The balanced type is given by Aquarius, representing the settled and consecrated thought of humanity. The latter is the soaring man-eagle of the zodiac and is closely connected with the idea of the Holy Spirit of man. But Libra is rude, primitive, and untamed. It works on the intellectual plane like the other Aries signs, but its function is intensely dynamic. There is something paradoxical in the idea that the invisible steam which issues so quietly from the spout of a kettle can be turned into a force which can ultimately be used to tear up the surface of the earth. This paradox can be carried yet deeper. The principal constituent of air is nitrogen, one of the most inert of the gases. Yet, for this very reason, nitrogen is the principal constituent of practically all high explosives.
Wow, where was that from again? That was really awesome.
It's Your Place in the Sun, officially by Evangeline Adams, but this was a while ago. The story's out. It was ghostwritten by Aleister Crowley.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's well written.
Very much so.
It lines right up with, Libra is, seventh house, which is about relating in the right way, and how the air, basically Libra would say, my law is my will.
Yes.
The Watkins writer that I mentioned earlier, the Watkins...
It's interesting you put it like that, because Crowley's whole thing is love is the law, love under will, which is a whole... Every word in that basically is defined differently by him, so of course that it's very misunderstood, but the idea is the true will is dictated by love, and love, it's not like interpersonal romance. Love really means in this context more like unity. So the idea is if everyone was acting out of unity, the world would be a utopia.
Right, and you have to think about Libra, his ruling planet's masculine energy. Ruling planet is Venus.
Yeah.
So that's where this desire for, Venus shows up. She's benevolent. She brings, depending if it's enemy or not, but Venus brings beauty. And this is where the scales in the Libra card, the justice, no, this needs to be balanced, this needs to be right, this needs to be my relationships with others. Seventh house is where we come out to the other. Needs to be beautiful. Needs to be in balance. Needs to be in harmony. And there's it's very active house, because houses 1 through 6, that's underneath the horizon. That's where we're growing and learning and setting our mold and figuring things out. 7 through 11 are all the outer houses where we play our story out. So when you get to 7th, now you're coming out. So it's like Aries energy, spring equinox thing, but it's with others. So there's going to be, man, let's just talk about this. Have you ever fought with somebody? You ever had loud arguments with someone in communication?
Of course.
I think we all have, if we were honest. You know, so this is where that comes from. There's this passion and this quest to get things right and beautiful and in harmony. And it's air. It's not Mercury air. It's Venus air. So it's more personal, you see. Much, much, much more personal. And Libras question balance everywhere they go. And it's important to them. And they live their lives through relating. You know, coming out and being with others, and they learn through relationships, I think, more than any other sign, as I've studied. That's just my opinion. But, wow, I've seen some Libras really go through it. They just learn a lot of life lessons through relating with other people. They want peace and justice, and they like partnership and companions as long as the Venus is all in balance there. And there's a gentleness that can come to Libras that I have seen. You know, Venus softens everything. I don't know if I said that already, but I didn't realize that until one day I was having a reading. It's a while ago. And the reading was one of those readings where it was a serious tone and, you know, you needed to sit up more straight. You could feel the energy of, you know, I need you to see this. And then the next card to bookend it was the Empress. And it just completely lightened the mood when she came out. I'm like, oh, the Empress. What could go wrong? Look at her. You know, she's glorious. And that when that energy came out, Venus, I immediately softened, is where I'm going with this. And my heart took a turn in a different direction. And it wasn't as overwhelmingly true, even though I needed to hear it and read it. It was easier to take when she showed up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's how Venus is. So, and this is cardinal, which is where you can get that, you know, where you were reading about the air being violent. You know, this is cardinal air, like cardinal fire. I really believe, I know Aries gets talked a lot about how they're just so forward and in your face, but I think that cardinal signs can be that way as well. Not just the other cardinal signs, not just Aries. And Aries can get a bad rap for that, for energy, because Mars is their planet. But I believe that Libra is just as passionate and active with her air. I don't know why I call her. It's male, because it's masculine energy with that air, just as much as Aries is. The dislikes of a Libra is a discordant atmosphere. They don't like when things are out of balance. Violence and injustice bother them. Zero social feedback, like they are partnership people. 7th house is partnership as well with either your lover, your partner, your husband, your wife, spouse, where you work, your business partners. And you can be a slave to passion. So if you have if you're a Libra and you have a debilitated Venus, you can have a Venus out of balance. You can just be, it's kind of like, I think of the Kardashians.
I'm not a Kardashian. That's me, no. Exactly. I'm a Libra with a debilitated Venus.
That's because you don't have a debilitated Venus, even though it's a Virgo
Venus,
detriment. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You have to look at the whole chart. See, that's why we can't just look at one little piece. I've looked at your whole chart.
I'm just a pleb.
You've got Hecate next to you. You cannot go wrong. So you're the Transformers, though, this Libra energy. And, you know, the scales, which is what Libra is represented by, is the only inanimate object of the zodiac. Thus, its association that reflects Libra's fixation on balance and harmony. So it's a very, very important thing for Libras to have that balance and harmony. You know, Venus is the second brightest object in the night sky, too, with Moon being the brightest. So Venus we got Sun, Moon, Venus. Very, very powerful. Harmony, beauty, refinement, affections, love, the urge to sympathize and unite with others. Venus also rules Taurus. We talked about this earlier. And the second house, fixed Earth. So if you want to see how partnerships can put things on the Earth, look at your Taurus. Your Taurus is going to show you that. Romantic partners, I think I mentioned that. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, Libra rules the kidneys, the skin, the lumbar region, and the buttocks. So, the Libra card. We ready to go there?
Yes. So,
Justice.
this includes parts of letters between Lady Frida Harris and Crowley. So let me explain that real quick. The way this deck was created, basically, Lady Frida Harris, she is the artist of a deck. She was an artist before this, and she was known publicly as the wife of a British politician in the 40s. And basically, she became a student of Crowley, and the dynamic was Crowley is educating her on how the elements that should be in the card, and she paints it. This is basically her idea for her way to learn the deck and create the card at the same time. So, this is Harris to Crowley between November 3rd and December 19th, 1939. The woman satisfied. From the cloak of the vivid wantonness of her dancing wings issue her hands. They hold the hilt of the phallic sword of the magician. She holds the blade between her thighs. And another one from Harris to Crowley in December 1939. I will do a new justice, damn her. Do you think there ever was a woman satisfied? With what a smirk she would greet the dawn. This is Crowley's response back to Harris, December 1939. My experience of satisfied women is that they do greet the dawn with a smirk. If not the dawn, any time up to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and only when it wears off does one have to start all over again. And these notes on justice, or as we have preferred to call her, adjustment. I suppose I was in a very bad temper when I made my criticism, but I do feel strongly that the plumes of mat are too insignificant, and the dove and raven look simply stuck on, nor do I think that the tessellated pavement is quite right. The general criticism is that the card is a little too cold. Libra is the sign of autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close-bosomed friend of the maturing sun. In your card, you have got the idea of balanced static, whereas it ought to be dynamic. Nature is not the grocer weighing out a pound of sugar. It is the compensation of complicated rhythms. I should like you to feel that every adjustment was a grand passion. Compensation should be a festival, not a clerk smugly pleased that his accounts are correct. It seems to me that this doctrine is very important as a commentary on the text, existence is pure joy. And I feel sure that the connection of Venus and Saturn with the sign is significant in this respect. The compensation is surely the awakening of the eld of the All-Father, the constant reproduction of the original purity from the last stage of illusion. Compare what I said above about the number 10. To return to adjustment, those birds bother me very much. I don't think they belong. I think they come from Noah's Ark. It would be better to simplify this card by leaving them out altogether. I feel sure that when you get the Venus and Saturn dancing motive firmly in your mind, you will produce a lady whom you will like better. Now, this is Lon Milo Duquette's commentary, as this is from his book, continuing. The goddess of adjustment is in perfect balance, left to right and top to bottom, amid spheres of light and darkness. The goddess of adjustment is in perfect balance, left to right and top to bottom, amid spheres of light and darkness. She stands on tiptoe at the very point of her sword. An enormous set of balances suspends from the perfect point of her crown, the ostrich plumes of Mat, the Egyptian goddess of justice. The left scale pan holds the alpha, the right the omega. The lines from her toes to the scale pans to the tip of her crown create a lozenge, a type of vesica by which students of mystic geometry measure the immeasurable, which states a fabric of space to reveal the goddess. Crowley calls adjustment the feminine complement to the fool. Now, I just want to reiterate something that...
One second. He calls justice the feminine complement to the fool?
Yes.
That's interesting. I would have to agree with that by the time, except she's not feminine. But okay.
Well, it's interesting, though, the character they paint, on the card is a woman.
Okay. Is that okay? So that's why he's not referring to the actual having it being Libra. He's just tying it into the image.
Right, but I guess that Venus energy, like you were calling it a she before too. And the thing about air and Mercury is kind of hermaphroditic. I mean, it's interesting.
This is true. Okay, this is true. Air is, I can see how. Yeah, but okay.
I just wanted to reiterate this one passage that just screamed out to me back from Crowley's letter back to Harris. Nature is not the grocer weighing out a pound of sugar. It is the compensation of complicated rhythms. I should like you to feel that every adjustment was a grand passion. Compensation should be a festival, not a clerk smugly pleased that his accounts are correct. And that's just wonderful. It's not... It fills this card with passion, and it's so much less dry and boring. It's the lady in the adjustment cards fucking loves adjusting because adjustment is the way of nature. So rarely, it does happen, but rarely is there a traumatic, sudden event, like an asteroid impact or a volcano erupting. Most change in nature is, incremental adjustments.
Inch by inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. I used to say that to my kids all the time. Yeah. And it's the truth. And it's like being the fool. Remember, we spent a lot of time there talking about the fool's happy, going on a journey, right? Mm-hmm. Like a child. And so I could see where he's going with that. And 11 reduces to 2, the number of balance.
This is key 8.
Oh, he has justice as key 8?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well,
connecting Gabora to Tippereth.
Well, and 8's the number of abundance, leadership, and influence. Rewards, honor, respect, power. And when 8 comes, this is where it's saying consolidate material and spiritual resources. It's spiritually, 8 represents cosmic consciousness and infinity. 8 on its side, associated with the star and strength. So, interesting. Well, in the Smith-Waite, it could be a woman. It is feminine energy, masculine energy, though. But it could be a feminine form. I never really looked at it being a he or a she. I think I just defaulted to calling it a she. But she is sitting and supported on a bench. That's important. There are several cards that are seated. And benches represent a pause and a reflection, a time to sit and a time to think. Also, there are 2 pillars, and we see these pillars throughout the deck. In the High Priestess, we saw it a couple other places. But this is, again, balance and taking the middle ground. That's why the figure's seated, supported, sitting in the middle. The vertical orientation of a pillar symbolizes the drawing down of spiritual and intellectual to the material realm. So going from 0, by the time you get to, he's got you at 8, I'm at 11 in the traditional deck, you really made some progress. You're halfway through the deck. It's not a small place to be. There's a crown represented. Whenever you see crowns in the grow. It also represents relationship with the spiritual and divine and this intersection of consciousness and spiritual communion. The scales are in here, which is a symbol for justice and truth and fairness. Represents the 5th and 6th chakras. So a lot of what we've been saying is bringing this energy to a practical nature so that we can learn and grow this inch by inch, right? So taking that which is above and bringing it down to that which is below. As above, so below, as within, so without, as my soul, so the universe. I think it's really interesting on the Justice card, again, this golden yellow color, always in the background here with air, golden color, and she's draped in red, a red robe. There is a veil behind this figure, which is also red, but a little bit of a different color red. But veils symbolize things that are illusional, and veils can be removed. And so they're a symbol of an initiation into secret and mysterious worlds. So there's wisdom to be found in the Justice card that is beyond, again, as above, beyond just this earthly realm. I love that she's holding her sword high. We know that that's the mind as well in the tarot as air.
Compare that to the thought deck. The sword is between her legs.
And we eliminate things with the sword. That's interesting. Wonder why he has it there.
Or it's also where... Yeah, I never really got... Why were they talking about a woman satisfied in the beginning? I don't fucking... Actually, that part never
about
seemed
a woman
to...
What?
What they mentioned a woman satisfied in the beginning. I never actually... That never quite explained itself, or maybe it did, and I just didn't understand it.
Well, you got to tie it into the whole context of what he said. And you said, by the time you get to 11, this person is seated, this person is supported, this person has the sword of truth raised. You know, this person has the scales in the other hands and is draped in red, the color of passion. So you've come to this place of knowing, which isn't that like women. They're very intuitive. They, mothers know where their kids are at all times. They have eyes behind their head. These kinds of sayings. Mothers intuitively know. Cancer is the most psychic, intuitive sign, representing the 4th house, the mother archetype. So maybe that's the tie-in. That's kind of where I see it, but I could be wrong.
Your place in the sun. To understand Aquarius, we can hardly do better than to take the other 3 cherubic signs and harmonize them. The Aquarian has all their powers and qualities to some extent, but never to excess. He has the kindness of Taurus without its blind devotion, the courage of Leo without his combative and challenging qualities, the scientific spirit of Scorpio without the passionate intensity. Aquarius is essentially the all-round man. One cannot put one's finger upon a definite lack in character, and at the same time, one cannot say that he markedly excels in any one feature, save that of being armed at all points. The completeness of mind must be most carefully distinguished from a superficially similar quality in Gemini, for the mind is not detached from the earth and from the heavens like that of Gemini. Aquarius is at home on all planes and never either separates them or muddles them. In fact, the great drawback of the Aquarian is his inability to specialize in this way. He rarely becomes expert in pure mathematics because the aridity of the subject is too distasteful to his humanity. Scorpio makes a much better surgeon because Aquarius finds it difficult to regard the operation as a mere matter of cutting and tying. At the back of his mind, there is always a feeling that there is a human being on the operating table. We commonly find him far more distinguished as a physician, where he can combine the patience of Taurus and the courage of Leo with the insight of Scorpio.
Says Justine that he brought in the other two signs. Yeah. Is it a female that wrote that book, he or she?
It's Crowley.
Oh, it's Crowley. That he brought in those other two signs.
And I like that because sometimes the best way to define something is to contrast it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well,
that's why you do.
Useful tool.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why you look at polarity all the time, because we live in a world of polarity, don't we? Duality. Right. And that's so important. And, it reminds me really quick, just going back to this whole thing of duality, where we were watching a nature show and we were watching Birds of Prey, phenomenal on Netflix, on animals, and just eagles and vultures and falcons. And it just amazed me how, they would just grab a mouse or something and just tear it open with its beak and just eat it dead,
Mm-hmm.
And it looks so horrible. Or a bear tearing into something, it just looks so horrible. But it's not evil. There's no evil there. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. I don't know. I know that was a sidestep, but we have to remember duality and polarity. There's the first house and the seventh house. There's the 11th house where Aquarius is, and there's the 5th house. That's why he brought in Leo, probably, because Leo runs the 5th house, and he's fixed fire across from fixed air.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun in Aquarius, he rules the 11th house in the zodiac. By the time you get to the 11th house, you have come out to others and engaged. You've done your transmutation work of the 8th house. You've been dead, and you've risen again, and you were the eagle, and then you were the scorpion, and then you were the snake shedding its skin, and you became the phoenix. Moving into the 9th house and your spirituality, your connection to all that is. Into the 10th, you take that solid life and you move it out into a career. Then you get to the 11th, so it's what do you leave behind? This is a house and a sign of legacy. And it's very important to Aquarians to bring something of value in a fixed way onto the earth. It's a very intelligent sign. And I love what the Watkins Astrology Handbook by Lynn Burbeck has to say. Page 156. This is really beautiful. Let me read this. The sun in Aquarius, essence, living through liberating. Befriend the truth, high mind, low profile. Aquarius is the water bearer, and water symbolizes emotions. This means that your goal is to experience and to express your feelings without getting wet. That is emotionally biased, overly attached, or upset. In order to accomplish this, you strive to be free of whoever or whatever has an emotionally cramping influence over you. However, in your effort to liberate yourself, you run the danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater by pretending not to have feelings for anything other than the reasonably manageable. Furthermore, your convoluted mind is able to detach itself from the very fact that you have detached yourself in the first place. This is why the sun is in detriment in Aquarius, for your will can lose itself in the sky of your urge to be free. So it's important to remember it can be a real detached, cool Uranus, different kind of energy. That's the higher mind. Uranus is the higher knowledge. And the picture of an Aquarian is a man with his legs spread, very strong man, pouring water out onto the earth. And so they want to, like I said, put something down, some knowledge from above to below. They have a connection, the sky god. It is communication, and it wants to come down. It rules the ankles, the calves, and the circulatory system. So Aquarians like good companions, rebellious causes, future dreams, equality, and originality, and dislike excessive loneliness, causeless rebels. So they can get misunderstood sometimes. I see Uranus in some excuses for doing some activity and justifying it because, well, I'm just a rebel, right? Aquarians may be Uranus's ruling planet. Excuse me, the other way around. Uranus may be Aquarius's ruling planet, but it's not reckless. It's a revolter, but it's a measured revolter. And it has a reason for what it does. So
I have here, actually, Saturn rules Neptune exalted.
What does that mean?
In Aquarius.
Saturn has been assigned to Aquarius also with Uranus, but that would be the traditional first 7 when they did not have the outer planets.
All right, but also I have Neptune exalted.
Neptune is Pisces.
All right, but it's interesting because you were talking about the water.
Yeah. Yes. But it's water that's being poured out on the earth. There's a pitcher, and he's just pouring it out. So it's air after all. So there's communication here. Mm-hmm. I have a good friend who's an Aquarian, and she's a nurse practitioner, and she fits this to a T. It's unbelievable. I don't know many Aquariuses, but I know that where my Aquarius is, it's in Saturn, right? So it's tough energy in Aquarius. I mean, it has this ability to just stay and stay and stay on something fixed. And Aquarius is already fixed in its activity. Where Libra was cardinal and Gemini is mutable, this is our fixed sign. So Aquarians have a lot to bring down and put upon the earth, if you know any Aquarians. And they represent the star in the tarot. You want to talk about the star?
Yes, wonderful. So, from understanding Crowley's Thought Tarot, Milo Ducat. Drawing from imagery found in the first chapter of the Book of the Law, the star is one of the most intensely thelemic cards in the deck. To truly appreciate its secrets, one must be familiar with the contents of that chapter and cognizant of its possible meanings. The central subject is Nuit, Nuith, or Egyptian Nut. Here, she is not pictured as the infinite arch of the night sky, as we see on the steel or an Atu 20, the Aeon, but tangibly personified as a beautiful goddess. 3 7-pointed stars that populate this card are versions of the Star of Babylon and reveal to us, if we haven't already figured it out, that Nuit and Babylon are, to Crowley, 2 aspects of the same goddess. Quote, Babylon, he tells us, is yet a further materialization of the original idea of Nuith. She is the scarlet woman, the scarlet harlot, who is the lady of Atu 11, lust. He also refers to the 7-pointed star as the star of Venus, as if declaring the principal characteristic of her nature to be love. The Harris star is very faithful to the original description. She even includes the roses and butterflies that are absent in more traditional decks. The river, which is a bit hard to see, flows at the bottom of the card and is demarcated by hills on the distant shore. Perhaps the most exciting departure from the traditional versions of this star is the huge celestial globe that dominates the card. The globe is often mistakenly identified as the Earth. If it were the Earth, it would dramatically diminish the spiritual and cosmic scale of this card. The celestial globe represents the entire heaven surrounding the Earth. Therefore, all other images on this card that are placed outside of the celestial sphere must represent spiritual environments that transcend even the concept of infinite space. The largest and smallest of the 3 stars are found outside the celestial sphere. The former spins counterclockwise like a cosmic pinwheel in the upper left corner of the card. The latter tumbles clockwise like a tiny star seed from the golden bowl in the goddess's right hand. The third star whirls counterclockwise on the celestial sphere itself. The 2 cups in her hands, Crowley writes, are fashioned as breasts, as it is written, the milk of the stars from her paps, yea, the milk of the stars from her paps, unquote. Quote, from the golden cup, he continues, she pours this ethereal water, which is also milk and oil and blood, upon her own head, indicating the eternal renewal of the categories, the inexhaustible possibilities of existence. Crowley completes the description thus. The left hand lowered, holds a silver cup from which also pours the immortal liquor of her life. This liquor is the Amrita of the Indian philosophers, the Neptune and Ambrosia of the Greeks, the alkahest, the universal medicine of the alchemists, the blood of the Grail, or rather the nectar which is the mother of that blood. Traditionally, the star is the card of hope, the promise of things unseen. What is the hope that Nui offers us? What is the promise of our star goddess? I wish I could simply reprint the entire first chapter of the Book of the Law and show you, but this short excerpt might give you some idea. Quote, I give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith, while in life, upon death, peace unutterable, rest, ecstasy, nor do I demand aught in sacrifice.
So does he attribute Aquarius to the star?
Yes.
It's a reach after reading that. I'm just trying to tie that in. I don't know how he makes that leap. Some of his stuff, you have to have read his other stuff to know where he's going.
Oh, yeah, no, but it's very much humanitarian. It's very much about pouring out, right? Give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith. That definitely gives me the picture of pouring out the more sensitive side of the emotions, at least, upon the earth. And you're not asking for anything in return. It's just the humanitarian nature of Aquarius.
Oh, okay, that's really beautiful. And that is true. Aquarius is wherever you see it in your chart is where you'll see your humanitarian heart and efforts. That's really true. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Of course.
So the star card has on a weight deck has 8 stars, and the card is number 17, and 7 and 1 is 8. So that I think is why they have the 8 stars there. It's a naked woman bent over with one pitcher going into a pool of water and another one she's pouring out on the ground. So there's 2 pictures in that card. And I'm going to read A.E. Waite's description of this card because he did the deck that I'm reading. So I'm going to verbatimly quote him, and he says this. A great radiant star of 8 rays, surrounded by 7 lesser stars, also of 8 rays. So you have 3 rays in your stars, right?
3 7-pointed stars.
3 7-pointed stars, and I have 7 lesser stars, also of 8 rays, and 1 bright star. So I have 8 and 8. It's interesting how he changed the numbers. I wonder why he did that.
Well, 3 is Binah, the great mother, right? And 7 is Venus, love.
Yes, all right. I might answer that through finish reading this because he goes into Binah. The female figure in the foreground is entirely naked. Her left knee is on the land and her right foot upon the water. She pours water of life from 2 great ewers, E-W-E-R-S, irrigating sea and land. Sea and land. And we know when we put something in the sea, it touches all other waters, right? That's what they say. The figure expresses, she pours water of life from 2 great ewers irrigating sea and land. Behind her is rising ground, and on the right a shrub or tree wherein a bird alights. The figure expresses eternal youth and beauty. The star is Liotole Flamboyante. I'm really massacring that, but that's what it says, which appears in Masonic symbolism, but has been confused therein. That which the figure communicates to the living scene is the substance of the heavens and the elements. It has been said truly that the mottos of this card are waters of life freely and gifts of the spirit. The summary of several tawdry explanations says that it is a card of hope. On other planes, it has been certified as immortality and interior light. For the majority of prepared minds, the figure will appear as the type of truth unveiled, glorious in undying beauty, there's that Venus, pouring on the waters of the soul some part and measure of her priceless possession. That's the humanitarian side, right? Being willing. But she is in reality the great mother and the Kabbalistic Sephirah Binah, which is supernal understanding, who communicates, fixed air, the zephyrs that are below in the measure that they can receive her influx. The Galaxy Tarot of this card says this: optimism, renewal, boundlessness, peace, and astrology. Remember, Uranus is the sky god tied to Aquarius. If you have planets in the 11th house, this, depending on what's going on and what planets is there, it could indicate astrology in your life, especially if the sun is there. So the star is a card of hope, peace, and renewal. After the destruction of the tower, the star brings optimism for a fresh start. When the star shows up in a reading, have trust in the constantly changing nature of the universe. After the darkest hour comes the dawn of a new day. You're on a healing path. Be sure to nurture both the physical and spiritual aspects of your life. Do what is practically required. So Aquarius is a very practical wisdom. That's what I love it being attached to astrology, which is an other outside of us wisdom, so to speak, but it's also very practical, so practical that astrologers back in the day were trained side by side as medical doctors. And they would, especially in Chinese cultures, they use it alongside. They look at your chart and they rely on it to treat you for symptoms and diseases and all kinds of things. That's really quite amazing. Calmness and stillness may be required to heal completely. If someone in your life needs healing, the star is telling you that optimism and gentle nurturing are required. So we have to remember the star, when it does come out, it's like a star in the sky. It is supposed to bring hope and optimism, and that's what Aquarians aim to do. And I love the way that ties in, because if there's anything that I know about Aquarians, is they really want to make a difference. They want to leave something on the earth. They're pouring this picture out onto the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Being absorbed, the water, the knowledge, the wisdom, the very soul and heart is being absorbed by humanity, by earth. So it's definitely an inspiring card. When you get the star, it's a good omen, so to speak. And this card doesn't come up a lot for me. I really don't see, not that I don't have all that, because there's other cards too, but I really don't see this card a lot. It's interesting. But you know, it might have been because I just had my Saturn return, and now that it's breaking free, maybe I will see it. That could have been why. But the bird represented in the tree is tied into Mercury, because birds are known for being messengers, which is tied into air. And they represent clear thought and speech. So what is being poured out is something that humanity needs. Messages to humanity that need to be received, and it's associated with the intellect and freedom. Because birds are very smart and they're free, right? to go wherever they want to go and do whatever they want to do. It's very important to look at the symbols, each of the different symbols within the card. And the Galaxy Tarot is excellent. They didn't pay me to say that. I'm just sharing some of the things that I read off of come from that app, and it breaks down a lot of different pieces that sometimes you miss if you don't take it apart layer by layer. So, what else? Anything else on the star?
Nope.
All right, so we've gotten through all the zodiac signs that are attached to air within the chart. And you have the 4 kings, which in the Thoth deck is fire, but in the original Smith-Waite deck, it is air. So I'm not going to go into that, but you can look at the kings and their corresponding suits and the entire suit of swords. So do you want to talk about swords for a minute and those cards?
If you want. I didn't pull anything else.
Yeah, I didn't pull anything on them, but I just wanted to say when you get to the swords, a lot of times they have negative connotations out there, and I just want to encourage you. The swords are the air energy is really, really helpful, especially in areas of the monkey mind, right? Yeah. And in areas of where you need to just have a balanced mind, and you need to have mindfulness and this sharp intellect. Very intelligent signs are these 3 air signs. They rule the air. They have something to say. And it's important for us to look at where those energies are in our chart and where we maybe need to sit back and what do we need to cut away? You know, what do we need to cut off of our own lives? And I think of that verse where Jesus said, I think it's better for you to cut out your own eye than sin or something. Basically, and it's been totally misunderstood, but how I see him saying that parable is it's like, look, you know, if you have gangrene, man, cut it off, right? Don't let your whole body get messed up. If you're in a relationship, which air has a lot to do with relationships, cut it off if it's not good for you. You know, don't stay where you can't grow and you can't express yourself in a way that's healthy for both you and all other parties. I felt like I was supposed to say that. I hope that was for someone. I don't know who, but I just feel like I was supposed to say that. If you're struggling with that, do the right thing. Go with your gut. And, you know, air energy, that monkey mind, it has to know the next step. Think of the fool. He doesn't know the next step. Sometimes just trusting that if you step out, that step's going to appear. Because you don't know what's around the corner. You gotta walk towards the corner and then turn it. And I know that the universe, God, Buddha, Spirit, however you want to look at that, I know that it supports you and we don't walk alone. It's an amazing journey on this earth. And I don't think it's meant to be this heavy, hard thing. I think it's meant to be abundant. And yeah, there's pain, and we don't celebrate pain in we don't jump up and down, yay, I got hurt today. You know, like when you got shocked the other day, I'm sure you didn't go, oh, that was wonderful, I really enjoyed that. No, but those moments, I don't know, they jolt us, don't they? They stop us in our tracks. Yeah. And we need electrifying air energy to do that sometimes. What?
All the electrical words. I got blasted yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry about that. I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah.
Could have went down differently. We wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah, well, my parents would have gotten a big paycheck.
Oh, my goodness.
Got life insurance on the job.
Yeah. Well, shoot. I don't know, you need to give somebody a backup number or something, or write down somewhere where someone will find it. Please call Kate, because I'll have no idea what happened then.
I'll find you.
You'll find me? Oh, that's right, you did say that. Yeah, do something, like knock something over or something.
I'm sure you'll be easy to find.
I will be very easy to... I am a beacon of light.
I'm sure you're more in that world than you are in this world anyway.
You know, this is true with Neptune. Neptune can retrograde. I'm working with somebody on that. It's a serious position. Sometimes anyone, we'll close here, anyone who's got Neptune, go back and listen to our Neptune episode, study all you can if you've got Neptune in the 12th or 1st house. Those are really, really challenging places, and the 7th, I would say. The other houses, you can kind of work your way around it, but those houses are very personal, and they can really be challenging. I'm finally understanding why my mind always wants to go up and out and know, you know, that it's going to be better once we get there. It's not always like this everywhere. There are other worlds that aren't like this, and this is just a 3D heavy place, and, you know, we're meant to have joy while we're here, and, you know, sometimes it can get really hard and you want to just leave your body. That's often a Neptunian theme where you're like, oh, I just don't even want to be in my body. Not that you want to commit suicide or die or you're sad. It's just, it's a lot. And if you don't have, you know, for you that's probably hard because you're Libra, you're air.
No, I don't even like, I don't like the rules of physicality. I have to get up and go to the bathroom. I have to pay taxes. Too many rules for me.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules here. And I don't think it's meant to be like that. That's what I'm saying. Something's gone wrong. Like, we should do, I guess, just an open-ended podcast on that. But, you know, what is really going on here? You know, and people could say that they know, but they can't prove it.
Mm.
It's just, you can't. There's just too many holes everywhere. So, I guess we'll end with that, huh?
Yep.
It's kind of negative.
No.
For all the people that were, like, so sure. Like, okay, prove it.
The star. Just go back to the star. Nice and happy.
The star, yes. Okay. Well, it is getting dark. I'm looking out my window, and the stars are coming out after it pouring rain. So, yeah, there is that. There is always hope. But you can't be so positive. This is kind of what you got to be careful with the star, because you can have this positivism that isn't even in reality. You're like, oh, everything's just fine, when it's like, no, it's not. You know, it isn't fine. You need to address X, Y, Z. It's fine.
You know, it's very interesting that you mentioned. I've once seen a plant deck where the star was the opium poppy.
A plant deck where the star was the opium poppy.
Yeah, every deck had, every card had a plant attributed to it.
Oh, that's so cool. That would be really cool. And the star was the open... Well, that's interesting. That would be a really cool deck.
It's called... what was it called? It's a small, like, individual deck with, like, very limited release. I think it was the Alchemist's Garden tarot deck, maybe. I think the only place I could find it was, I think, Etsy and Facebook. It's like one guy making very limited runs, but yeah, you should go look for it and buy it. It's
I will. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like herbology a ton, and I'm learning that, you know, just like the song that Pocahontas sang. Seriously, there's a spirit in everything. There's an essence, and everything has a name. Everything is alive. It's fascinating living here and discovering that, because I feel like the fool sometimes. You know, just this kid that's just like, wow, what an incredible place this is. I remember I told my husband this the other day when we were talking about Neptune. I remember being like 12 or 13. And I know I wasn't that old and I wasn't that young. And I was standing in a field. I was by myself. And I looked out over the field and I was like, I don't know, I can't explain it to you. It was like this is really going to sound weird, but I finally came into my body fully. Like, I stood there and I was like, is this what it feels like to be here? Does everybody feel this way? I literally thought that. Is this what it feels like to be here? And I'm wondering if it wasn't like all the trauma.
Yeah, because one of the main reactions people have to severe trauma is to leave their body.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like there, but not there. But I remember very specific things growing up, not just the trauma. So I was there, and I have pictures, but I don't know, maybe there's something to that, but that literally happened, and it was like, is this how this feels? And I remember just feeling like I looked around. I was like, do other people feel this way? It was weird. I don't know if anyone else has ever felt that, but that's a very Neptunian thing. When you have that planet that's so far away, so close to you, it's just, it could be challenging. So I'm figuring that out, though. And these podcasts are helping me study and research and learn more. And Mr. Crowley and his interesting wisdom. Guy, I wonder what his IQ was.
I'm pretty sure he was a Libra also.
Oh, I could tell you. I bet his chart's in here really quick before we go. Let me
you could totally find it.
No, Albert Einstein's is in here, though. Ironically, he had Uranus, or he had Neptune in his 11th house. So he was considered to be out there on a lot of things before it finally became verified. He went through a lot of stuff as a child, actually. He was told that he was an idiot, all kinds of things.
Right, yeah, he didn't start speaking until like 5 years old or something like that.
Yeah, that's just really incredible, isn't it? All right, well, that is all I think I have. Let me just see here. I think that's all I got. How about you?
Yep, that's it.
All right, well, good night.
Good night.